give praise, esteem, and honor to the Most High Yah by way of Yahushua HaMashiach. John 5:39. 5:39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me, and you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. Another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Isaiah chapter 28, make it probably about verse 8. Matter of fact, go to 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 1 first. I'm gonna just show you why we doing this. Just doing this for one particular reason, and that's it. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 1. Hold on. Second Peter 3, verse 1, the second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, and both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance, that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the Kadesh prophets, and of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Master and Savior. So he said, he was writing this epistle to stir up your clean mind by way of remembrance. So we have to stir your mind up by way of remembrance. Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 8. I will try to be very, very brief with this particular matter. Isaiah chapter 28. We go ahead about verse 7. 28 and 7, I suppose. He said, but they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. So he said basically because they around here getting drunk, they don't know how to do right. So let's continue on. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. Whom shall he teach knowledge? Whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. I guess just on general principle. Hold this here. Come over here to Hebrews, man, real fast. You sure already know what it is. He said, who does he teach doctrine to? Whom shall he teach knowledge? But those that are off the breast, those that are of a full age. Hebrews chapter 5 and verse about 11, I should say. Listen what he tell you. Of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing you are dull of hearing. For when the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Elohim, and are such become such as have need of milk and of not of strong meat. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 10, and let's see what the first principles of the oracles of Elohim are. I want to say Deuteronomy 10 and 12. It could be 11 and 12. It is 11. Yeah. I'll use 11 and 16 and work my way around. And after that, Deuteronomy 6, I suppose. Deuteronomy 11 and 16. Take heed to yourselves that your heart be not deceived. Now, what would cause you to deceive your heart to be deceived? Because he tell you to take heed to your heart. Well, Hebrews chapter 3 tells you what will cause your heart to be deceived. I'll just run down there and swing that and just grab that there for you real quickly. And that is in Hebrews chapter 3. And that's about verse 12, where he said, take heed lest you have an evil heart of unbelief and departing from the living Elohim. Because Paul also told you that in Romans, that sin deceived him. So listen what he tell you again. Take heed to yourselves that your heart be not deceived. What will always deceive your heart is the lust of your flesh and the lust of your eyes and the pride of life and the love of the world and the flesh, and everything that is of the world and in the world will deceive you if you allow it, because it'll end up coming. It's just like what a man said, right? It's not what goes into a man that deceives him, but what comes out. He also says, as a man thinketh, so he is. So that's what we were talking about not too long ago. It's about your heart. It's about making a new heart and a new ruach. It's about being born again. It is about your heart. If you don't change your heart, if you don't take that heart of stone out and replace it with a heart of flesh, you will have a problem. And you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them, then Yahuwah's wrath will be kindled against you, and he shall shut up Shamahim, and there shall be no rain in the land. You shall not yield her fruit, and you shall perish off that good land which Yahuwah give you. Hold on. Let me see if Deuteronomy 10 was what I want. Yeah, 10 and 12. Let's look at that first principle. I might swing to 6 and 25. I was right the first time. No, we don't want Deuteronomy 6 and 25. We can stick with Deuteronomy 10. We would be being redundant. And now, Yasharal, what doth Yahuwah thy Elohim require of thee, but to fear Yahuwah thy Elohim, and to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahuwah thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Come back to Hebrew 5. That's the first principle. Like, dudes be trying to make the law itself so deep, and it's not really that deep. I just seen a dude today say, you got to know Hebrew to get the proper insight on the law to properly apply it. I would want to know, what would I need in Hebrew to know not to commit adultery, or to not worship another god, or to not steal, or to not be covetous, or to not break the Shabbat, or to keep the feast, to not defraud my neighbor, and all of those things. Like, I want to know what deep, because those things are kind of self-explanatory. There's no deepness or complexity to that. Hold what you got, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Hold that Hebrews 5, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11. We'll start at verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And verse 1. Woo, boy. Which Elohim, you could bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me. For I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Mashiach. This thing is very, very simple. You just heard the simplicity of the whole thing in Deuteronomy. You just heard the simplicity of the whole thing in Deuteronomy. He said to keep the man commandments and to love him with all your heart and all your soul. So let's look at John chapter 4 verse 20. And then that's encapsulated in the very statement that the master is about to make. And that's the simplicity of the whole thing. The thing is not deep. It's deep, but it's not deep. It is simplistically complex, so to speak. And it's only some complex because there's layers to it. And that's just layers to deciphering the parables. That's what the layers are to, honestly. That's what the layers are to. 4 and 20 of the book of John. I'll make it 19. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Yahushua saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour come when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Yahudim. But the hour come, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship Abba in Ruach and in truth. For Abba seeks such to worship him. Elohim is a Ruach, and they that worship him must worship him in Ruach and in truth. So to worship this man, to serve this man, you would need to worship him in Ruach and in truth would be to love him with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and all your might. Because that would be the encapsulation of possessing a unwavering Faith, but not only that, but you would be serving him in the essence of who he is, because he is not a carnal individual. Therefore, he doesn't have carnal ways, carnal desires, nor does carnal things. To serve him in truth is to serve him in a firmness or faithfulness, and that's when your faith is involved, and your faith will be built upon the rock. And then since your faith is built upon the rock, you built upon Yahushua. Therefore, the just shall live by their faith. Then this is what will allow you to become upright and blameless, as we had spoke about the other day. It's the faith is what actually makes a person perfect. A lot of people haven't been made complete, whole, and mature is because their faith is lacking. So to be honest with you, I'll give you the verse for that. Come on to Habakkuk chapter 2, man. Verse 2 real quick while we holding Hebrew 5. Cause like I say, today we just taking a detour. I can't spend too long on one of them, cause I got to get to the point where what was on, so I can deal with the other thing with decision making and slide on out of the way. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 2. Make it 1, I suppose. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Yahuwah answered and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that they may run that read it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. And when he's saying the soul that's lifted up, this is a proud person. That's why I say he resisted the proud and give favor unto the humble. So you can't be clean, perfect, just, what upright is going to point you to if you're proud. He says it's not going to be able to happen. He said, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So he said those that are clean, upright, complete, tamaim, all those things that pointed all that. He said they'll live by their faith. That's what makes them just. That's what makes them perfect. That's what makes them clean, because they're going to live according to their belief in Elohim. So when we look at it, if we have certain shortcomings, pratfalls, and all these other things that come up, it's because that's according to our faith. It's just like when the master told somebody came to him and asked him to heal his daughter, and he said, according to your faith, it shall be. So when we look at certain things, that's how this man operates. According to what your level of faith is the amount of what he may reciprocate back to you. If your faith is minuscule, then a minuscule thing will be reciprocated back to you. So that the key to moving into becoming like Mashiach. Mashiach lived by his faith. His faith was that he knew he would be resurrected from the dead. Therefore, that's what he lived by. And this is the thing that, in my personal opinion, that most people who call themselves to be Hebrews, or say they're Yahudim, or say they're Hebrew Israelite, whatever we call ourselves, and whatever the four corners of the earth where we may be scattered at, that aspect of faith producing the righteous obedience, like Paul wrote in Romans 16, is what is grossly lacking. Because I do not believe that majority of our people actually believe this word. I think they actually are more engrossed on culture, more engrossed on nationality, and more engrossed on beating people upside the head to get them out of Christianity, or to prove that they are correct in whatever doctrine it is that they're pushing. I see very few dudes drop information and then you do what you want to with it. You know what I'm saying? Most dudes like to argue, debate, you know what I'm saying, push that their viewpoint or their or how they perceive the book to be understood is that's what it is, versus this is what it is. I'm standing on that regardless. You can do what you want to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know what I'm going to do. You know what I'm saying? Your job in the word, whether you preach the word or not, is you try to persuade people to righteousness so they can say they so. At the same token, you don't browbeat people upside the head with it. You know what I'm saying? You tell them, they don't receive it, you keep it moving. You keep it moving. It's simple as that. Back to Hebrew chapter 5. It's as simple as that. Remember, that's what he told his apostles. He said, if they won't receive your testimony, dust your feet off against them as a testimony against them and keep it moving. He told his apostles when it came to the scribes and Pharisees, if the blind lead the blind, they both shall fall in the ditch. You know what I'm saying? He told them to leave them alone. He didn't say to keep preaching to them that maybe they might get it one day. He told them leave them alone. I'll read verse 12 again in Hebrews chapter 5. For the time you ought to be teachers, you need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Elohim, and as such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. Everyone that use milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belong to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Let's swing around here. What it is? 1 Kings chapter 3. I guess we still can be able to work in what we've been dealing with. Let's look at something that King Solomon prayed for in 1 Kings chapter 3. 1 Kings chapter 3. 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 5. He said, those by reason of use. Remember, we just read Deuteronomy. He said, keep this man commandments, love him with all your heart, with all your soul, all your might, all your strength. So by reason of using this man's word is how you would be able to determine what is good and what is evil. Not by how you feel, not by what you think, not by what you see. Because remember, the master told you, don't judge by appearance, but judge righteous judgment. So we have to judge it according to what's written. That's why he said, whom shall he teach knowledge? But him that's weaned from the breast and drawn from the milk. You have a lot of men who seek to teach knowledge, but they have not discerned. They can't discern between good and evil because they have not actually used the word. This is what, matter of fact, I'm going to get to that in a moment. 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 5. In Gibeon, Yahuwah appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Elohim said, what? Ask, what shall I give thee? Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee. Thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, O Yahuwah my Elohim, thou hast made thy servant Malach instead of Dawood my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? And the speech pleased Yahuwah that Solomon asked this thing. Solomon asked the ability to know right from wrong. You know, a lot of people pray for a lot of things. There's probably very few people that pray to be able to have judgment, to be able to determine what is right and what is wrong. Let's come over here to Romans chapter 2. Praise the Lamb. Even with me coming to this to try to deal with something else to stir your mind up to pure remembrance, it still going in the direction that I desire to go in. So praise the Lamb. Because I mentioned this to y'all last week, if my memory serves me correctly. If it wasn't last week, it was the week before. Romans, what that is, 2 and 17. It is very, very important to be able to know how to discern. That's why he say you got to serve him in Ruach and in truth. Because if you're walking in the Ruach, then you cannot serve the lusts of the flesh. Because the flesh and the Ruach war against one another. That you should not do the things that you should. If you make decisions based off the flesh, and the things that pertain to the flesh, as dealing with the word soul or nephash, is the seat of the appetite or your seat of your emotions. That's what the word nephash is going to relate to when it pertains to your soul. The seat of the appetite and the seat of your emotions. And you don't want to make this. Remember, Elohim is not a living soul. He made Adam a living soul. He is a ruach. He is a spirit. It's totally different thing. So when you look at that, you seeking to have his ruach in you, then you can see why there's a battle between the ruach and the nephash, because the nephash or the soul is dealing with the base matters of man, or his emotions or his appetites, his desires, while the ruach deals with the things which are of Elohim, the things which are of God. So you have to subdue that nephash with the word and become quickened by the ruach, or quickening ruach like Mashiach is. That's the representative of being baptized. When you come up out the water, you went in a living soul, You came out a quickened ruach, or something that's been made alive by Elohim. The word is what makes you alive. So knowing that Elohim is a ruach, he makes decisions based off the word. He judges things based off the things that are right according to what's written, and not his desires or his emotions, so to speak. See, with us being flesh and blood and being a living soul, we seek to make decisions based off our desires and our emotions, or off our nephesh, or off our soul, when you should be making decisions based off the ruach, which is the elements and nature and power of Yahuwah Elohim. Romans 2:17. He said, behold, thou art called a Yahudim, and retesting the law, and make thy boast of Elohim, and know his will, and approve the things that are most excellent, being instructed out of the Torah. And art confident that thou art a guide of the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, an instructor of foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge of the truth in the Torah. Thou therefore which teach another, teach now not thyself. Thou preach a man should not steal, dost thou steal? Thou say a man should not commit adultery, dost thou commit adultery? Thou that abhor idols, dost thou commit sacrilege? Thou that make thy boast of the Torah, through breaking the Torah, dishonor thou Elohim. For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written, for circumcision truly profit if thou keep the Torah. But if thou be a breaker of the Torah, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So his point was, and that goes back to, clearly you're a babe, because somebody has to come back and teach you the first principles of Elohim, of the oracles of Elohim, excuse me, because he's saying, you say don't commit adultery, but you're committing adultery. So therefore the word is being blasphemed. So therefore you're not weaned from the milk, because you, from the breast, I'm sorry, are weaned from or drawn from the breast, because you cannot discern what is good and what is evil. Now if you can discern between what is good and what is evil, and you still go after evil, then that is indicative of your heart, and you really need to change your heart. I mean, that's just the bottom line of that. There's nothing else to that. So, nevertheless, back to Isaiah chapter 28. Everything gonna always come down to the heart. Change your heart, you have a change in your life. Let your heart stay the same, and you always have the same. You always had the same. He said, you know, receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your soul. Allow that word to merge and become one with you, and to purge out that old leaven, purge out that old heart, that old mind. Purge it out. Get rid of it. I don't care how much I don't care where you move. I don't care where you work. I don't care the people you encounter or deal with. If your mentality is the same, you will recycle the same experiences over and over and over again, because you're going to think the same, therefore you're going to do the same, and you're going to attract the same type of people, and that's just the bottom line. A lot of people say, well, you know, why do I attract this type of person, whether it be friends or spouses or this, that, and the third? It's because of your mentality. So you're going to gravitate to people who share that same mentality that you do. I've told some of y'all this before. You just end up with the same person, just with a different name and a different face. You know what I'm saying? And that's it. That's all you really just end up with, is the same people, same face. It's a different name, different face, recycling the experiences. You know what I'm saying? I done seen people say, okay, I want to move to this city and move to that city and this, that, and the third. But if you go to that same city, with a different city, with the same mentality that you had from the city that you just departed from, you're going to do the same thing all over again. Because it's not the location, it's the matters of the heart. It's your heart, it's your mind. All right. It's your mind. That's really all it's about. If you want to defeat sin and overcome the world and overcome the flesh, you have to take on the mind of Mashiach. You have to change your mind. That's it. It's not even that. And that comes down to want to and desire. That's really what it comes down to. How bad do you want to? How strong is your desire? Because if you have the drive to do it, then you will do it. If you don't have the drive to do it, you will not do it. Isaiah 28 and what? 10. For precept must be upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. That's what we came here for. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. So I spoke to a brother today, and he was like, hey, boom, boom, boom. And somebody mentioned this verse as they were talking about you had to know Hebrew to be saved, to understand the scripts. And he made a statement about, can you exegesis the script? He wasn't talking to me. But I was like, shoot, nigga, I don't know what exegesis is, my nigga. You know what I'm saying? But I know that this is talking about Acts chapter 2. This is what I know. I know that. And I know that's what that's referring to. Let's get to Isaiah 43 and 10 real quick. I got to speed it up. It's 8:20. Isaiah 43. Verse 10. Well, verse 8, I should say. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. Because remember what he told you. Hold what you got. Come over here to Acts chapter 28. He said the blind people that have eyes and the deaf that have ears. And that's what our problem is with our people. We good. We got an eye, can't see nothing. Got ears, can't hear nothing. Not nothing. Acts chapter 28 and verse 23. And when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him and to his lodging, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of Elohim, persuading them concerning Yahushua, both out of the Torah of Moses and out of the prophets, from morning till evening. And some believed the things which were spoken, and some believed not. And when they agreed not among themselves, they departed after that. Paul spoke one word. Well spake the Ruach HaKodesh by Yeshayahu the prophet unto our fathers, saying, go unto this people, and say, hearing ye shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see, and not perceive. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, their ears are dull of hearing, their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. Now, and I'm going to mention this here, because the brother was like this here, he made a statement. Now come back to Isaiah 43. That's what he said. Bring the blind people that have eyes and the deaf that have ears. That's why he said, if you would have believed Moses, you would have believed me, because he wrote of me. If you have not believed Moses' word, what Moses had written, then you won't believe my word. This is what Yahushua said. When you look at a lot of people, when this word is brought forth, they got eyes, they can't see it. They got ears, they can't hear it. So a lot of brothers who won't believe in Mashiach, they'll be like this here, oh, he say I can't. You got to have a spirit to understand and all that type of stuff. You know, trying to belittle the power of Elohim. The book says in Job 32 that understanding comes from the Almighty. Let's go ahead and get that real quick. That's what he said in Job 32. Just look what he said in Job 32. Because who gave Solomon that wise and understanding heart that we read in King? It was the Ruach of Elohim that expounded that unto him. Which is why 1 Corinthians chapter 12 says wisdom is a gift of the Ruach. That's a gift. Y'all got to give you that. See, men think that they can obtain the gifts of Elohim through their own labor and own righteousness and all of these things, and they try to remove him from the equation, yet trying to praise him in the same breath. It don't work that way. Job 32 and 4. Listen to what he said though. Now Elihu waited till Job had spoken, because they were elder than he. When Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, then his wrath was kindled. Elihu the son of Bachariah the Buzite answered and said, I am young and you are very old. Wherefore I was afraid and durst not show you my opinion. I said, days should speak and multitudes of years should teach wisdom. But there is a Ruach in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty give them understanding. You already said there's a Ruach in a man, and it's the inspiration of the Almighty that gives them understanding. Not Hebrew, not none of that. It's the inspiration of the Almighty which gives a man understanding. Now let's look at the Hebrew word for inspiration in this particular verse, because he said that's what the book says gives a man inspiration. The inspiration comes of the Almighty. So that's where it's got to come from. That word is Neshama, and the word is the breath or Ruach of Elohim. Divine inspiration or intellect. The Ruach of Elohim is what gives inspiration. It don't come from nowhere else. You can't get it from nowhere else. You know what I'm talking about? And also, that also lines up to a statement where you seen Paul tell Timothy, let nobody despise your youth, when you see that Elihu was hesitant to speak because Job and his 3 friends were older than him. So therefore he held his speech until these men were older, who were older than him, had speak what they needed to speak. Come on back to Isaiah 43. Let me crank this up a notch. We're in verse 9. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this and show us former things? Let them bring forth their witnesses, that they may be justified, or let them hear and say, it is truth. Ye are my witnesses, saith Yahuwah, and my servant whom I have chosen, that ye may know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no Elohim formed, neither shall there be after me. I, even I, am Yahuwah. Beside me there is no Savior. I have declared, and have saved, and have showed, when there was no strange God among you. Therefore ye are my witnesses, saith Yahuwah, that I am Elohim. Now let's swing to Acts chapter 2. Because the gentleman was like, what you said in Isaiah 28 and 11 is not in Acts chapter 2. I say, man, if you're looking for that to be quoted in Acts chapter 2, then you're not going to see it. Now, if you understand the script, you're going to see it. Bottom line. But tell you that in Proverbs chapter 8, we use plainness of speech. Acts 2 and 3 though. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as a fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak with other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance. And there was dwelling at Jerusalem Yahudim, devout men out of every man under Shamahim. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, meaning they were confused, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, behold, are not all these men which speak Galileans? And now hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born. And it says, Corinthians and Medes and Elamites and the dwellers of Mesopotamia and in Yehuda, and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, and Phrygia and Pamphylia, and Mizraim, and the parts of Libya, and Cyrene, strangers of Rome, Yahudim and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of Elohim. And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying one to another, what mean this? Now we know Peter begins to elucidate on certain passages of the scriptures that bear witness that Yahushua was the son of Elohim, therefore showing forth that the apostles, as he stated in Luke chapter 24, that they were his witnesses, that he saved, and that Yahuwah is Elohim, and there's no Savior besides him, that no Elohim was formed before him, nor neither one after him. These people could not understand why are these men preaching the word in different languages, not realizing that the book of Isaiah has already told you that these men would speak in different languages, because Yahuwah said, I'm going to speak to you in another tongue, in another language. Because before, that's how dumb niggas is who when they don't pay attention to stuff. That's why he said, tell the blind that those that are blind, that those that can see that are blind, and those that tell the blind with eyes to come on, and the deaf with ears to come on. Because Yahuwah had never spoke unto this people in any other tongue before this time other than Hebrew, other than Abarim. That's the only language he had ever dealt with the children, the sons and daughters of Yasharal, the seed of Abraham, his friend. This is the only tongue that he ever dealt with them in until this day of Pentecost, in the second chapter of what we call the Acts of the Apostles. That day he began to speak to them in another tongue, and dudes don't seem to understand that. And I asked the brother, I said, can you show me somewhere in the scriptures why they're speaking in tongues? Because if we don't have a reference, we got to toss the whole book of Acts out. That nigga say he's referencing the Tanakh in the chapter. I say he just don't get it. Why even continue the conversation? He just don't get it. 1 Corinthians 14. May y'all allow him to catch it at another time, because that's what he told me. I have not seen that in my studies. You might need to study a little harder. That's all I can tell you, because it's pretty clear to me. I can't speak for nobody else. 1 Corinthians 14 and 14. 14 and 12. Even so, ye, forasmuch as ye are zealous of spiritual gifts, seek that you may excel to the edifying of the body. Wherefore let him that speak in an unknown tongue, pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in an unknown tongue, my ruach pray, but my understanding is unfruitful. What is it then? I will pray with the ruach, and I will pray with understanding also. I will sing with the ruach, and I will sing with understanding also. Else, when thou shalt bless with the ruach, how shall he that occupy the room of the unlearned say Amen at the giving of thy thanks, seeing he understand not what thou say? For thou truly give thanks well, but the other is not edified. I thank my Elohim. I speak with tongues more than ye all. Yet in the synagogue I had rather speak 5 words with my understanding, that by my voice I may teach others also, than 10,000 words in an unknown tongue. Brethren, be not children in understanding, howbeit in malice be ye children, but in understanding be men. In the Torah it is written. Listen what this man tell you now. He say in the Torah it is written, with men of other tongues and other lips will I speak unto this people, yet for all that they will not hear me, saith Yahuwah. Wherefore tongues are for a sign, not to them that believe, but to them that believe not. And prophesying serve not for them that believe not, but for them which believe. And we've seen that in Acts chapter 2, that only 3,000 men came about. So speaking in tongues is only for people who don't believe. That's why he said he would do it, because they did not believe. Can't tell these niggas nothing though. Nevertheless, I just wanted to rehash that. I spent a little bit longer time on it than I intended. It's all good. Prayerfully, something beneficial came out of that. Let's deal with certain tests and steps for making decisions. Let's look at 2 Timothy chapter 3. Remember what we read in Deuteronomy? He said, don't go home. He said, don't be deceived. Go by the word. Don't be deceived. Don't let your heart deceive you. Because the book tells you in Jeremiah 17 chapter that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. He that trusteth in his heart is a fool. Is a fool. Is a fool. So now, how do we sit back and we look at what is the best course of action for making decisions? Well, let's look and see in 2 Timothy chapter 3. We will begin at verse 14. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the Kadesh scriptures, which are able to make these wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Yahushua HaMashiach. All scripture is given by inspiration of Elohim and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of Elohim may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So therefore, all things should be tested against what the word says when you come down to make decisions. Because it says all scripture is profitable for correction and for reproof and for teaching, and to teach you how to be righteous. Romans chapter 10 say, they have a zeal for Elohim, but not according to righteousness, because they go about to set their own righteousness and have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Mashiach. So in order to learn what is good and what is bad and what is just, then one needs to take hold of this man's word and walk in it. Luke chapter 9, just on general principle, just because I just like reading it and mentioning it as much as I possibly can. That's the only reason why we're going to Luke chapter 9. Luke 9 and 23. Luke 9:23. He said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake daily and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. So when you're looking at the word, the first thing that you would need to learn and understand is the same thing that Yahushua son of Nun told him in the 24th chapter of his book. To everything that you did on that side of the flood, leave it over there. because you need to learn how to relinquish yourself. This is the scriptural test to know if something. If he spoke about this on some, okay, a girl, a grown woman, a woman I know, she asked, "Is it anything? Does the book say anything against astrology?" So you know, it's funny because we did talk about that recently. So you know, we mentioned the Deuteronomy 18, and some people were shocked just because they didn't know it was there. But then let's look at Isaiah 47. Let me see the verse I want here, man. Isaiah 47. Isaiah 47 and 13. Well, verse 12. It says, "Stand now with thy enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, when thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou may prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up, and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee." So let's see what our language says that these words mean. So when we look at astrologers, and that word is havar, and it is to be an astrologer or to be a horoscopist. So he sat back and said, let your horoscope person, let your astrologist tell you what's going to happen to you. Let them tell you if they can deliver you from this. Because clearly this is something that Yah has a problem with, because he is mocking them behind it. When you look at stargazers, and this is someone who is a seer or a vision, someone who is a prophet. The word is kosei. This is someone who's a prophet. Then let's look at the monthly prognosticators. That word for prognosticator, and a prognosticator is somebody who predicts things in English. That word is yada, and it's someone who knows or perceives or reveals or makes something known. But the key thing is he said, let your astrologists, your horoscopists, let them tell you if you can be delivered from these things. And that's how you would test it to know, okay, this is not something that I should be doing because the word is against it. Let's look at Proverbs 11 and 3. And let's look at something and we talked about this in Luke chapter 12. So I got to speed it up a little bit because it's 8:35. Where he told you about anything that's done in the dark, it shall come to the light. Because then you need to look at, will something bother you if people knew that you did it? If you can't do something, if you got to do something and you can't tell nobody you did it or you doing it, then you already know that you're wrong. You shouldn't sit back and look at it as on the aspect of, is it a sin or not? Okay, let me be clear on what I'm about to say. Let me be clear on what I'm about to say. You have certain things that you can do that are just not people's business. And there's a difference on doing things and you just don't want anybody to know you're doing it. Because once you go to thinking in that term, you're walking the line of being deceitful. And once you walk in the line of being deceitful, you know that you might be doing something you ain't got no business. Proverbs 11 and 3. Make it 11 and 1. See, a false balance is an abomination to Yahuwah, but a just weight is his delight. And that's what you need to look at when you doing these things. See, David sought to cover something. He knew he was wrong with sleeping with Bathsheba. That's why he put Uriah the Hittite on the front line. Because he wanted to kill this man so he could take this man's wife guilt-free. You understand what he was doing? He knew he was wrong, and he's trying to cover up the offense. Because he didn't want nobody to know about it. You have to sit back, you have to look at that. That people do things. If you got to do something in secret, and John chapter 7, the master's brothers told him, he said, don't nobody do nothing secret. They do stuff in the open. If you are Yahudim, you don't do anything in secret. And when we talk about in secret, not expressing your business and talking about like you have to make everything that you say and everything that you do made open, but you are not purposely trying to hide any behavior because you don't want nobody to know what you're doing. When you're doing that there, you're skating a very, very thin line. Proverbs 11:3 though. It says, the integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverse, I'm sorry, I didn't read verse 2. But when pride comes, then comes shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. We already read that in Habakkuk chapter 2 when he said that his soul that is lifted up is not upright in him. Because what is that shame? When we look at the word shame, you should already know if pride comes, what that shame going to be. That word for shame here is a disgrace or a dishonor. The word is cologne, sin, reproach. Where pride comes, sin is coming not too long after that. You have to realize that. When pride comes, sin comes. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. So when we look at the integrity, and it's just the word integrity or innocence, and that is tuma. And then you got upright, which we already been looking at that earlier, and that's yashar, and that's to be correct or straightforward, righteous, that which is upright. Now let's look at perverseness just on general principle. When we look at perverse, it's something that's crooked dealings, a distortion, select. And remember what we already read that in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 about he's hoping that you don't be deceived by the subtlety of the serpent who deceived Eve. And that's the test what you got to sit back and look at. Because if you're moving with subtlety and doing things in secret, you're moving with the means to deceive. And sin can come from behind that. And you don't want that. That ain't what you want. So when we look at the test of making decisions, we got to test things according to the word. And then we got to sit back and look at, if it bothers you, if anybody would know that that was your choice, then that's probably not a choice you should make. Any choice that you make in life, if you serving Yah, you should have no problem with anyone being aware and abreast of the choice that you made. It's because you're making the choice in righteousness and in truth. If you don't want anybody to know about the choice that you're making, it's quite possible because it could be according to what's wrong. Because the reason why I'm stating that is because if you testing stuff according to the word, and just like we already read in Hebrews chapter 5, and you're by reason of using the word, then it's because you're using the word, you're able to be ready for strong meat. You can discern between what is good and what is bad. See, a lot of times when we can't discern between what's good and bad, like I mentioned before, we lean on our nefesh, the seat of our appetites and the seat of our emotions, and then you don't really want anybody to know that you're making a decision according to your flesh, so you hide it. And that's why we use David as the example. He made a decision according to his flesh, and then he tried to hide it. And that's why he say that what you do in the dark come to the light. You can't hide it, because Yah is going to let it be known. So that's the whole point of that. We look at verse 3. So the next thing we're looking at, let's look at 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. Because if you want to know, and I got to do, and this is really just an abridged version, because we could definitely do this in a more extensive version, and Yah willing, we probably will. 1 Timothy 4 and 12. That's another verse that I'm thinking about, and I can't remember. Oh, I'm looking right at it. Let no man despise thy youth. Be thou an example of the believers in word, in behavior, in charity, in ruach, in faith, in purity, till I come. Give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Exhortation is to warn. Now he's telling Timothy that he should be an example in the word, in his behavior, in love, and the spirit that he possesses, and the faith that he exhibits, and the cleanliness that how he lives. And he's telling him till he gets back that he should attend to reading, to warning, and then expounding on teaching the people. Neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy, with the laying on of hands of the presbytery. Meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine, continue in them, for doing this thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. Now that's a strong statement of what he just told Timothy. He said if he continues in it, He will not only save himself, but those that hear, because you know faith come by hearing, hearing come by the word. He said, I heard what you by the ear, now I see what the eyes. So now we have to sit back and look at is how we live and what we do. The example that is set forth. That's why we can reference back to 1 Peter chapter 2, where he tells you that walk in Hamashiach's footsteps, that he set an example. Now, I mentioned this other day, and I was talking to my people about this earlier this evening. And I told y'all about this other day, a couple weeks ago, when we were dealing with a particular matter. One of the biggest examples that I think that our people fail to execute is to love one another, forbear one another, and forgive one another. That man told you in Luke chapter 17 verse 1 that offenses would come, and if your brother sinned against you 70 times or trespassed against you 70 times in a day, that you should forgive him 70 times 7, as a manifestation of the loving, merciful forgiveness of Yahuwah on earth, that you manifest that towards one another. Colossians chapter 3 say that you ought to forbear one another and forgive one another as Elohim forbear and forgave you. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We think idealistically. We think that, oh, if you're in the Word, that you're never going to have conflict with anybody, that people never going to butt heads, that there's never going to be misunderstandings, and that people will not get on your nerves. The people got on Samuel's last nerve. You know what I'm talking about? The people got on Moses' nerve to the point that it precluded him from getting in the land based on an action that he did. These people were getting on these men's nerves. These people butted heads all the time. So you have to get that out of your brain, that these things will not ever happen. That's why he told you offenses will come. Your brother will. That's why these things are written. He say, man, debate your cause with your neighbor so you can win your neighbor. This is why the master came back and told you that in Matthew 18. Holla at him. He don't want to hear him. Get you 2-3 witnesses. They don't want to hear him. Get the body. And if they don't want to hear him, then leave him alone. That's why that stuff is in there, because you are dust and ashes. You are flesh and blood. You will butt heads. People will do things you don't like. Somebody may say something that hurt your feelings. And you have to go reconcile that with your brother or with your sister. You got to go handle that. The reason why I think a lot of things they grow up and they fester and grow into things that they don't have to be, is because people are upset about certain things and they don't go ahead and rectify that immediately. So it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and then it explodes into something it didn't have to be, because you could have just went and told them, man, I didn't really like that when you did that to me, or when you said that to me. So you could sit down like adults and hash that out. Because that's why I told y'all, we will forgive people outside the Word quicker than somebody in the Word. We're more ready to work things out with people outside the house than with people inside the house, because we believe if we learn the Word, nobody shouldn't act like that. And that is not a realistic point of view. Because somebody doing something against you don't mean necessarily that they sinned against you. They just did. I just seen a video of two brothers. I use this as an example. Real talk. These brothers posted a video. They was up there at the Hebrew gathering that the Chosen Seed, the people up in Detroit, had did. Something with some preacher dude in Kentucky, whatever case may be. I don't know all the facts. I seen the video with a dude talking about I ain't watch it all because I really didn't care. It was dragging on too long. I just didn't really want to hear it. But he was interviewing somebody that had an issue or whatever went on with that preacher in Kentucky. The brother said he took the video down because he said he felt like he put it up there before getting all the information. In so doing, it made the brother who he interviewed appear to be a liar. That brother made another video, again interviewed by somebody, and had some scathing things to say about the brother who took down that video, who interviewed him at the first. These two men sat down, talked it out, hashed it out, squashed it out, and then made a video for everyone who was abreast of the situation to know that they handled that like godly men are supposed to, and let that go. Iron that out, talked it out, seen what the misunderstandings when discrepancies was, seen what it was, and was able to move forward, not cordially or amicably, but in a brotherly, familial fashion. That's how you're supposed to do it. Not just walking around mad, but actually trying to figure out, because a lot of stuff be miscommunication. You thinking somebody said this and that's not what they said, or you thinking somebody did this, or you thought somebody meant that and that's not what they meant. And that's really what a lot of stuff be, is misunderstandings and miscommunications that could be handled with a simple conversation. Just with a simple conversation. That it ain't even got to go no further. It can be handled by a simple conversation. Like I told y'all a couple weeks ago, like how somebody kick their game, they ain't really got nothing to do with you. If you want to say something to somebody about, hey man, I don't like how you kick your game, that's your personal choice. But they not doing nothing to you. If they ain't committing no sin, ain't no reason really you can say nothing. You know what I'm talking about? Unless you just feel the need to say, bro, I don't like how you moving. I feel like, you know what I'm saying, you want to do that, ain't nothing wrong with that. But that don't, the regaling that, you ain't got to come in and try to be making and telling people how they live their life or the decisions that they make, and you ain't got to do none of that. Unless you feel what they doing is detrimental to their soul, then you have an obligation to speak up. But at the same token, you ain't got to keep telling somebody the same thing over and over and over and over again. If you told them once, what you got, you ain't got to keep telling them again and again. If you done told them twice, you definitely ain't got to tell them again. Because people know what they doing. If that's the decision they want to make, then they the ones that have to live with that decision. You know what I'm saying? But you got to look at that. But if somebody has done something to you directly, I ain't talking about what a nigga told you. You know what I'm talking about? Or what you think. But a nigga has done something to you directly, then go win your brother. You can't, you got to go win. You got to be able to do that. Now, as the conversation I had earlier, which is to a certain extent, if a nigga really cross you out, really do something really sour, you can still have love for them, but to sit back and say that the nature of your friendship may be what it was before they slime balled you is unrealistic. Because you're not gonna walk with that same level of what it was before time if a nigga really slimed you out. But even if a nigga slimed you out, like we done went over this before too, you supposed to have enough sense to know that if someone is your enemy or they slimed you out, whatever it is, that you're supposed to be able to show them the manner of love that the books say that you're supposed to show them, because you would be heaping coals of fire on their head. But see, we turn around and look at, I ain't messing with that nigga, I ain't doing this, I ain't doing that. Not knowing that if you just and they're not, for the sake of this example, what I'm talking about, and you actually do good unto them, you are adding on to the judgment that Yahuwah so justly and rightly, as Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians, that he wants to render to them that trouble you. But y'all see this stuff because you still want to handle stuff like carnal men. You still want to handle stuff like carnal men and not making decisions and using wisdom and understanding and judgment according to the word to move accordingly. And this is how you can discern between which is good and evil, because you're using the word. If you're not using the word, you won't have the capabilities of doing so. Okay, now I done went a little too long. This is about 8:50. But the other things we look at is, we'll be looking at is, are you being, and that's Galatians 1 and 10. He says, should I please men or should I please Elohim? You have to look at the decisions that you're making. Are you making decisions to please people or to please Yah? Because see, Saul is an example of that. He was pressured by the people to spare all the good oxen and all these other things. That's what he did. He didn't follow what the Ruach told him or what the word told him. He followed the people. Some of you make decisions and you make moves based on what people want you to do. If sinners entice thee, consent thou not. He says, should the throne have fellowship with the throne of iniquity? We had to sit back and look at, why are we so readily and quickly, that's being redundant, why are we so readily accessible to fellowship with sinners on a regular basis, especially on anything that got to pertain where y'all should be coming first? Do you know what I'm saying? Because y'all supposed to come first in everything. So are you being pressured by sinners, or are you going with what the words say? Because if you go with what the words say, you're going to upset sinners. Are you more concerned with upsetting that sinners being upset with you, or are you concerned with y'all being upset with you? Because you ought to be concerned if y'all's upset with you. You shouldn't care if no sin. What can a sinner do to you? A sinner ain't got no power to do nothing to you. But we be worrying about making them upset. Then the next thing we have to look at is, if what we do, will it cause someone to stumble? Most High willing, Shabbat night, we'll come back and then we'll get back on our regular scheduled programming, and then we'll take these tests and then we'll apply these tests to the people in our regular scheduled programming, which is what I want to try to do tonight, but I should have known that I wasn't going to be able to do it because I don't have a lot of time. I only have 8 minutes remaining. So when we look at what individuals do, can it cause other people to stumble? And we've seen that with every Malak of Yasharal and several from Yehuda, that their behavior caused all of Yasharal to stumble. So these are the things that you should be thinking about when you make decisions. Testing it by the word. Would it bother you if people know you're doing it? Would anybody follow what you're doing? Are you being led by the Spirit, or are you being led by people? Is what you doing, will it cause anyone to stumble? Or do you have shalom in your heart, and did you pray about certain decisions before you made them? Because you got instances where people went and prayed about things before they made a move. They went, meaning they went and saw Yah first. Some of them just went and saw the prophet of Yah first. Just like with Jehoshaphat. He said, man, you ain't got another prophet here besides these? They went and sought Yahuwah before they did something. They just didn't go do it. That's where a lot of people make mistakes at. That's why they make wrong decisions. Then you got to sit back and look at, when you make a decision, will it cause you to remain to be sanctified by Mashiach in the course of that decision? And then the most important thing of all, does it esteem Elohim in your decision? And we'll end in Ephesians chapter 5 for our slide on out the way. And we'll be at Regency. Regency is where we shall be. Regency. Ephesians 5 though. Because y'all willing, yeah, we'll come back Shabbat night and delve into this in a lot greater detail. Because we already set the stage with it, what we looked at with Solomon, what we read in Hebrew 5 and Romans 2. You got to know how to discern between good and bad. And the reason why most of us don't discern between good and bad is because we're not using the word. Therefore, we don't have the skill and ability to discern. Ephesians 5 and 8. I'll make it 5 and 3. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let not be once named among you, has become Kadeshim. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, have any inheritance in the kingdom of Mashiach and of Elohim. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things come the wrath of Elohim upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them, for ye were sometime. You heard what he told you? Don't be partakers with them. For you were sometimes darkness, but now you are light in the Master. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Ruach is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto Yahuwah. And that's what we sit back when we look at those things, what we mentioned, or what we're turning around and look at. That decision making is proving what is acceptable unto Yahuwah. So, hallelujah for Yahushua in the word. We start right there. Y'all understood that? So the majority of that, we ain't really like we got extra deep, nothing like that. But that's what we're trying to get to though.